right, folks. Welcome once again, everybody, to Irish Sports Daily Power Hour. I am your host, Mike Frank, here with Jamie Uyeyama. We also have Greg Flamong that's going to be producing the show, as he always does, and does a great job. Before we get going, I wanted to mention once again, it's a great time to sign up for Irish Sports Daily. You can go to the front page of Irish Sports Daily, click on the premium section, sign up for a premium subscription. Obviously, Notre Dame's still very much in the playoff hunt. They kind of got over their last kind of big hurdle, but that doesn't mean you can't overlook, Syracuse and Stanford. And so we'll talk about that here soon. But lots going on with Notre Dame football and also recruiting. Things are going to be picking up in that regard too. So looking forward to that. Also wanted to mention ESQ Clothing, which is our first sponsor. By the way, they got a nice mention by Marcus Freeman in the press conference today, Yama. So
yeah,
thank God for that, for Ge Wang and ESQ Clothing. ESQ is founded by ND alum Ge Wang and Chicago's go-to for best custom suits, shirts, and sport coats. As Notre Dame reloads for the season, now's the time to refresh your wardrobe and add the perfect suit, sport coat, tuxedo, and casual jacket for fall. ESQ Master Tailors combine next-level craftsmanship with the finest fabrics to deliver a fit that's built just for you. Now with showrooms both downtown Chicago and in Winnetka, book your custom fitting and step into confidence with Chicago's finest. Mention ISD at your appointment and receive 10% off your entire purchase. Greg, I forgot again. What is the code for the Black Friday?
For the Black Friday special? It's still ISD. You're getting 49% off from now until Thanksgiving on the Black Friday sale. 49% off. Code ISD, not valid on custom items or gift cards.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks. All right, Jamie. Interesting rewatch. First of all, I think we need to start on defense, and I'm just not sure you can play any better than they did. Of course, you'd have, a play you'd like back here and there, but man, I mean, this is the defense that we were hoping to see all year, and the confidence and the attitude and the effort and the pride that they played with. They did not want to let them score. I mean, gosh, they had how many plays inside the 5 there, because of the penalty, and they still held them to a field goal. I mean, this defense is playing so well right now, and assignment sound. They're not even healthy, and as much as you'd like them to be. But great to see Christian Gray come back and have a nice game. This is just as good as you could hope for, and Tay Johnson is becoming exactly who we thought he was going to be. KVA is exactly who we thought he was going to be. You see Josh Burnham finally get healthy, and he's playing fantastic. This is just very, very encouraging. I think even probably by game 4, we weren't quite sure, even though Notre Dame was kind of turning it around, we weren't quite sure if they were going to ever get to this level, because there was still some things that were going on that you're just kind of like, I don't know, man. But man, this is starting to look like the kind of defense that can win you a championship. Yeah, they can do some things a little bit better. I loved the things that Chris Ash was doing on defense. Some of the disguise things that he was doing. I mean, this is exactly what we were hoping Chris Ash would bring. And that the players would respond to his coaching and what he wants to do in this way. And it was just a really impressive performance defensively. I think it was the best one they had all year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was by far the best one. And I mean, obviously they've played pretty well lately too. So it's not like, that's like crazy hyperbole because of how they've done. It's just a fact. And you look at like Pitt had averaged 40 points per game in their last 5 games. Obviously you're someone, Mike, that you saw Mason Henschel and he looked pretty darn good. I mean, I saw a lot of Pitt people before the game that were worried that because this was a big game and it was going to get more national attention, that teams were going to come in and try to, buy NIL him out of Pitt. I don't think
Yes.
they're going to NIL him out after this game. Wasn't his greatest game, obviously, but I think that's because what Notre Dame did to him, And I thought they absolutely they got a ton of pressure on him all game long. They sacked him 4 times. He honestly should have been sacked probably 8 or 9 times. If there's one thing he did well in the game, it was escape. When he was in the grasp of guys.
Yes, couldn't get him down. Frustrating,
but I think that's something that he's done for most of the year, and he's a tough guy to get down. But when you look at the totality of it and what they did in this game, and I think it really was mixing up zone pressure, man pressure. They blitzed him a ton, right? They blitzed him a ton, but sometimes it was 5-man pressure, sometimes 6-man pressure, a lot of times 4-man pressure when they were running zone stuff. And he didn't know what was coming. That's why he throws that pick 6 because he thought it was man, a lot of that kind of stuff, stood out in the game because he just looked totally discombobulated the whole game. And I think, it's a credit to Chris Ash and the defense as a whole. They only had a 23% success rate when throwing the football, which is just absolutely atrocious. He had a QBR of 8.4, 3.8 yards per attempt. When they ran zone pressures, he completed only 3 of 8 passes for 13 yards. One of them was a shovel pass. So it was 2 of 7. Obviously through the pick 6. There was the other Bryce Young one where it should have been probably another pick 6 if he would have caught it. And it was just a kind of a masterful performance, really. And I think too, even if you look at say you mentioned the part about them getting the stop there on the 4th down in the red zone. Well, that's one of those drives that it shouldn't even have gotten to that point because they didn't call the face mask on the running back and they called it on Notre Dame instead. Yeah. And it should have been 3rd and 29. Instead, it was a 1st down. So there was just that went against them in the game, and it didn't matter. To give up only 3 points to that offense, because obviously they got the pick stick on defense for them. That was their other points in the game, and then the other one was garbage time. Man, it was about as impressive as I can think of, especially in this spot, because they absolutely needed to play up to a really, really high level against a team that had played really well, and they really exposed all of the warts that kind of showed Pitt, and it was well, can they expose these things? And they did, and they absolutely took advantage. It was just a brilliant performance.
Yeah, I was very, very impressed, and if he can continue to play this way, they're going to have a chance to beat anybody. Because, look, I don't know that there's any other team out there that is playing defense like this other than Ohio State. There's really Indiana, I guess. They've played pretty well defensively, obviously. I don't think that they've played a lot of great offenses so far, but you still have to give them credit. They've played well when they have played some good teams, and obviously Oregon can score some, and they did a good job against Oregon's offense, although I don't think that Oregon was quite who Oregon is now when they played that game. I think Oregon has improved greatly offensively as Dante Moore's gotten a little more comfortable in their offense. And boy, it's crazy. I mentioned on the board, Jamie, it's when you're Michigan and you're watching Underwood play, you got to be sitting there going, man, we had Dante Moore and we had CJ Carr in our backyard, and we didn't get either of those guys. And to me, I think those are the 2 best quarterbacks playing right now in college football. Although, I think Ty Simpson's done a pretty good job. There's no question about that. And this wasn't CJ's best game. We'll get to the offense a little bit here in just a second. But when you can play defense this well, it's got to be very, very exciting. And this is what we were hoping for. This is what we expected, right? We expected the defense to kind of carry the day, and now they're very much doing that, and the offense will get better. They certainly will get better. Speaking of offense, look, Pitt did everything they could to kind of shut down Notre Dame's running game. We know that. They're one of the few teams that plays with three linebackers almost exclusively because they want to shut down the run. They want to make sure you do that. I guess the replay for me, I didn't see. I don't know. It just isn't. I think their interior right now is struggling. I think Joe Otting did not have a very good game. I think he got kind of beat up in there a little bit. That hurt some things, and a lot of people are saying, "Well, why don't you run? In those short yardage?" Well, if you rewatch, he was getting owned in there quite a bit, and he wasn't the only one inside that was happening to. But again, there's so many bodies there too. But like if you look at that picture right there, look at that picture. That kind of explains where Joe Otting was having problems. I mean, look at that ankle and how taped up that is. And so I didn't notice it at the time. But boy, when you kind of rewatch it, because somebody had mentioned it to me, I looked, I said, okay, well, this is probably one of the reasons why he struggled a little bit. And so you got to give him a little bit of a break because there's nothing worse than trying to play with a bad ankle at the offensive line. But is this a concern? Because we have seen Otting play better. I thought Absher had some good moments and some not so good moments. I think across the board you could say that about this offensive line. It just wasn't their best performance. Pass protection is always good, if not great. There were certainly some moments where that wasn't great in this game. But again, I think with Otting's ankle, that hurts a little bit. But what do you think here with this offensive line? Is this a cause for concern? We know that they're going to get Shrouth back. He's going to be back for the playoff. They probably won't need him to win these games against Syracuse and Stanford. But still, just the continuity and that type of thing. I don't know. Your thoughts here?
I mean, I think it is a concern if you weren't going to get Shrouth back, then I think you would be very concerned just in general about how their interior, like, let's face it, all three of these guys weren't supposed to start this year, right? Like the three guys who actually were supposed to be probably the three best linemen on the team are not available right now, right? And so, that has to be taken into account. But I think in this game too, like there's a lot of stuff like Francis Brayu, he's a good player. He's a very good player. And they do so much stuff with their movement and slanting. And I actually thought that some of those holds were like pretty iffy, to say the least. Yeah. Well, I mean, most of the calls in the game, I think for the most part, were iffy against Notre Dame. But I think those kind of things I'm not worried about. I would say maybe the short yardage stuff, how they're going to handle that would be a little bit better. But there's a lot of times where I thought they got really good movement there up front and blocked it pretty well. It's just a level of consistency that you're not seeing. And that, if like comparatively to last year, and to most years in November, you don't see it at the same level. I mean, to be fair, it's guys who are in, the third start and the fourth start for the two guys there. It's not even it's not the same as bringing in Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler last year. Those guys were starters the year before. Yeah. And also they had played longer because those other guys got injured in week 3 of last year. Yes. Right. So it is quite a bit different from that perspective. I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm I'm definitely not concerned about the next couple games or anything like that. But, once you're going to play better defensive lines than Pitt's, that is going to happen, and it's going to be tougher to run the ball. But in saying that, Pitt does so much in terms of pressures and movements and stuff to try to stuff the run. I thought Notre Dame ran the ball pretty well against them, considering they ran for more yards than anyone has run against Pitt this year. They had more explosive runs against Pitt. Obviously, there's a lot of that is Notre Dame's backs, but they do have those backs, and that is a big thing. And I do think one thing I want to mention, because Marcus Freeman mentioned it. I think Tyler James asked about anything, but James Flanagan playing at tight end, I honestly think like that could be like a really big deal for Notre Dame. To me, he's a better blocker than Ty Washington. And they don't want to burn his red shirt. I get it. So like, but him in the playoff, like I think he will be playing more than Ty Washington in those situations in the playoff if they keep going forward. And then, I mean, who knows with Cooper Flanagan too. And those are big things because I even think with Eli, he's obviously such a weapon. He can do so many things too. But just to get a guy like that, even like a blow every once in a while, like he barely leaves the field. It's really hard to run a bunch of routes and then say, hey, you got to do all this blocking too. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think he's blocked fairly well this year, but he hasn't blocked at the same level he was last year. Well, last year he'd come in and he'd block like most of the time. So if that's your only job and you're only playing 15 snaps, it's different, right? So that is a thing where I could see that making him better. I think Flanagan, I mean, I really like James Flanagan. I've been a fan of his for a while, but I really think that he's, based on just watching him in this game, I was like, I liked what I saw from him in this game.
As a freshman, it's crazy.
As a freshman, really, really impressed by him. And and I think that will change some things and make it a little bit easier for them running the ball too.
Yeah. His talent's going to be off the charts, I think, once he kind of gets a whole year in the system and then weight room and that type of thing. The want to is definitely there. And let's be honest, it wasn't like they were he didn't exclusively play tight end and that was kind of his thing in high school. He played a lot of defensive line too. And probably just based off the films and stuff we saw, we didn't get to see the whole game, but looked like he was more of a defensive player than he was an actual tight end. And so, I just think the guy's going to be a stud. I'm very, very excited about him. Like seeing Micah Gilbert back in there. They needed him to show up and they need kind of another bigger body. And so that was important to get him in the game and that he's ready to go. CJ Carr, again, I wouldn't say it's his best performance. You're going to have some things like that happen. I don't know. Thoughts here, but I'm not concerned about it. It's just sometimes the ball kind of bounces your way, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes you have a boneheaded play. I mean, I do boneheaded things here at ISD, so they're just certain things that you're not always going to execute 100%. That's for sure. But, and again, I love that run play. I thought that was good. But your overall thoughts on CJ's performance?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was not his best game at all. And that first pick was a bad pick, right? Like that's probably like his, he hasn't thrown a pick in a while. And that was, one where he predetermined it. He stared it down. He obviously didn't recognize the coverage and that got him burned. So, that was a bad play. And then I think too, almost just as bad, Mike, was the holding onto the ball at the end of the half, which you got to have it in your head there. Like, get rid of the ball there. Like, get rid of the ball, go down, whatever. Like, you're not doing any, like, obviously the clock was ticking down to zeros too. So you just have to know in your head, like, maybe they should have reminded him more about it or whatever. But that was like, that could have been a really bad play for Notre Dame. So just those kind of plays where, he hasn't made those in a while. Obviously, this is a better defense, so there's part of it. I thought the pick six, actually, is the more that I watched it back, that's just like a freakishly unbelievable play by Rasheed Piles. And like, it actually wasn't at first, when I first watched it, Mike, I was like, this was a terrible call by Mike Denbrock. It actually was the right call because he was blitzing on the play. He broke off the blitz to pick that off. So, and if you notice there, like, if they would have completed that, and he blitzed forward and kept going, it would have maybe scored they might have scored a touchdown on it. that's just an incredible play. I think that's probably something that stood out to me in the game too, that Rasheem Biles, who hasn't played, like he hadn't played in 4 games for Pitt, and I think is the best linebacker Notre Dame has played this year by far. Like he also made that one pass rush where he beat Jadarian Price on that one, and it wasn't like Price, like, man, what a terrible job of it. That was an incredible pass rush, and he just has that kind of impact. Yeah.
Just extra plus athlete. The guy's just sometimes great players make great plays, and it doesn't matter how well you play. Great players are just going to make great plays, and that's why they're first and second round draft picks, and that type of thing. And so you're going to run into those guys sometimes.
Just one more thing I wanted to add on Card that we'll say, like, it wasn't his best performance. One thing I really liked was after he threw the pick, it was on the next drive, he threw that one where he layered it to Eli Raridan, over the top.
Yeah.
And that's a throw that if you're kind of scared or gun shy or like, I just threw this pick, you're not throwing that. And that is an important play for him to still make. And that is what makes Notre Dame more dangerous, is when he makes those plays. And I know those other, like the Fields plays, those are free plays. So I guess it's easy to throw, but still he's putting it there in the position to do it. So, as much as he made some mistakes in this game, he still did a lot of CJ Carr things that, were pretty exceptional.
The one thing a lot of people are going to want to talk about is, red zone offense and short yardage. It still seems to be somewhat of an issue. Denbrock is, I don't want to say he's gone away from running the football down there, but he is kind of mixing things up, throwing some stuff in the flat, trying to hit some things on the outside to kind of unclog that middle. So hopefully some things will open up in the running game. And it did on the quarterback draw run. That certainly helps. When you start playing out there in the flats, you can't always be stuck in there and not concerned about what's going to happen. I like seeing that he's doing some different things, but misdirection, I just don't see it. I think that would help them tremendously down there. You're not going to call it every play, but just giving the defense something to think about. And again, a lot of people are like, well, why don't you just power it in? Why don't you just, when your center's struggling like he had in that entire game, and then of course Denbrock knows his ankle's all messed up. An idiot like me, I didn't notice that as much. I didn't notice. I'm like, why is he playing this way? He's usually a lot better than this. I didn't think to look down at his ankle, but Denbrock knows that. So sometimes you can't, things just don't seem like the obvious thing to do. There's good reason not to do it. And again, if you watch the plays, he was getting blown up in there far too often. And that makes you a little gun shy to run it up in there. But I do think, hey, pitch it to the outside. I mean, when was the last time you saw? I mean, if you got a back sitting here, he's in an offset situation. You got to hope that Wagner can seal his guy. You got to hope that Knapp can seal his guy, and that your tight end can go out there and also do his job. I don't know. You got to find a different answer down there, because it's not going to cost you against Syracuse. It's not going to cost you against Stanford, but it will cost you when you're playing good teams. And a better thing down there, a better plan. And I like that he's mixing it up. I think he's trying to get some new things and things for teams to think about. But right now it's just the execution. And I know a lot of people say, well, hey, let's throw this play in here and let's throw that play in there. And why aren't we doing this? People don't realize there's 20 hours to practice and play the game. I mean, that's all there is. There's not unlimited hours where you can sit in there and rep new plays and put new plays into the thing. There's only so much you can do during the week. And so I think you'll see more changes to that once hopefully they do get into the playoff. But I do like the fact that they are trying some different things down there. It's just execution's got to get better. Your thoughts here on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it says everything that if you're they're literally inches away and you don't feel confident enough to run a quarterback sneak, it says how limited they are there. And I don't even know if there is a fix to that, because even if odding, whatever, it's not like when they had Ashton Craig, they felt confident to do that. Like, when he was healthy, right? Like, there's obviously something there where they can't do it. Now, don't get me wrong, Mike, I watch a million of these. Like, I watch games where a lot of teams, and the NFL teams, they put a tight end there, much like Mitch Evans did it for Notre Dame. And they practice snapping the ball to that tight end, and he runs the sneak. Mm-hmm. Seems like something that they could do with that, but maybe they just don't feel good enough about the O-line or the interior guys. Maybe that's it. But if you can't get it on inches, I don't even know. What is Mike Denbrock supposed to call that's a good call there if you can't do that? So yeah. I'm not even sure. I thought the Fields touchdown, I thought that was a really well played rub route, and like that, and it was like a legit rub route. Good job by Will Pauling there, and not like the obvious pick that Pitt ran.
Pitt did like 7 times. Yeah,
they
did it like 7 times, and it was obvious. I mean, some of them were just ridiculous. It's like, what, you're not even gonna call that? Come on. I mean, that one guy, he literally went up there and tackled the guy, and it's like, come on now. Tackled both guys. I know it is, but. It just, we're not going to get any favors from the ACC. We know that they're not going to give us any favors.
No, it really is. So I don't even know. Like, I just think, I know we have to talk about it every week, because it's like there's one of these a week where Notre Dame is like within the 3-yard line or whatever, and they can't punch it in. And obviously there were some Jadarian Price fumbles in there. There were some of these other things that are mixed in as well. But I just think maybe you're just better off just running that, even though not like Carr runs it that well, just doing the Riley Leonard and running the quarterback counter the whole time. Like, anytime you get in that situation, because there's a good chance you're going to get it, because at least you're going to have a good lead block from like Love and company.
So Matt's usually at the press conferences, but he doesn't ask questions because he's taking video and stuff, right? So what I'm about to say is going to be like a little bit like ISD is on the beat, okay? So if he could ask the question. Like, Marcus is talking today about physicality, and we're going to go at you, and aggression and all this other stuff. Like, but you just allowed them to call a rollout pass on 4th and an inch, man. Like I do want to follow up. Like, Marcus is very, he loves to talk about, he's main themes over and over again. Then why is he allowing this to happen? Why is he allowing them not to run the ball on 4th and an inch?
Because he's seen the results. That's why.
I understand that, but like, you can't get an inch. You can't get an inch. Like,
how many times have we seen it, Greg? I mean, how many times have we seen it that they cannot get an inch? Even when Craig and Strauss were in there, they couldn't get an inch.
They absolutely can. You I don't care. You have to try it. You can't see again, right? The culture is the culture. The standard is the standard. You have to, if you're telling me, like, again, I don't want to like call him out or whatever, but it doesn't compute. The two messages don't mix. You're telling me you're physical and we're going to establish this and we're going to offensive line program. You can't roll out on 4th and an inch. Like, you just can't. You have to, if you fail, then you fail. But you have to fail at the thing you're trying to be. Can't fail at the thing that's like, we're throwing it out. I mean, because first of all, throwing it out to Eli Raridan, like you're trying to trick him. And the sad part about that was that Pitt knew it was coming. They were ready for it. They weren't even tricked because they knew, well, Notre Dame just called timeout. They're going to roll out the quarterback here. To me, it needs to be asked. Like, at some point, like, hey, man, that's great. You're talking a good game here. You ran the ball on 4th. You threw the ball on 4th and an inch from the goal line with Jeremiah Love in your backfield. You said he was going to be a Heisman guy. Give him the ball then. Do something. So that's kind of where I'm at with that whole situation.
I mean, it's fair because when you're putting that messaging out, it's true. Like, and it's also fair that we've seen it enough that they obviously don't believe that they can get it. Like the coaches don't believe that they can get it.
There's no question.
Which is also too why like a lot of the things, and I totally get it. Like it's so easy to just be like, man, why did Mike Denbrock call this? Right? It's like, yeah, there's a reason why, because they don't believe, and there's a reason why Marcus Freeman isn't there in Mike Denbrock's face, being like, we can't run a quarterback sneak because they don't believe. He doesn't believe they can get it. So honestly, I don't have an answer. So it's the thing. It's like I get.
I also think it's a different offense. It's a different offense this year, right? So last year you could do that because you had Riley Leonard.
It was automatic,
and these guys were also used to doing it over and over and over. In this offense, you throw the ball a lot more, and it's been beneficial for the offense. It's been beneficial that they're able to do this. But you talk to offensive linemen all the time, and they say, "Hey, look, you got to get into a rhythm as a running team. If you're going to be a running team, you have to call consecutive running plays. You have to call, series of runs, over and over and over. And that's when the mentality gets built. And I just think because they haven't had that, and they haven't had the continuity up front that you'd like to have. You got Gerby playing for the first time. You've got Absher playing. He's played a little bit, but and Otting. It's three guys who haven't played a whole lot down there. Otting's hurt. And again, I'm not making an excuse because there's no excuse not to get it. There's no excuse not to get it. It's just I do understand why you're not running there. Would I like to see him under center and them to be able to push and these types of things? Yeah, probably. Could you put some big offensive lineman behind CJ Carr and slam, have him slam into the back? Yeah, that would work. But again, can your center with a bum ankle get low and play with leverage? And that's the hard thing to do when you got a bum ankle. Can you get low and play with leverage and push your guy? Even win a stalemate, can you do that with a bum ankle? That's difficult to do. And so I'm not trying to make an excuse because there is no excuse to be this bad in the red zone. There's just none. There is none. You should have better options. And look, if you know that that's what your team is, then you got to have better play designs to where the other stuff's going to work. So, you got to have better execution. If you're not going to call that play consistently, you're going to have plays that you can execute consistently because, when you look at the talent that this team has, there's no reason to have the kind of numbers they have in these short yardage red zone situations. There's just no valid reason for it. Thoughts?
I'll tell you a really good way. I'll tell you a really good way to execute something when you do it over and over again and you do it for like 100 years. That's how you execute something. And it's either your short yardage run game or it's the way you make chocolate, right? If you've got something that's tried and true for 100 years, then you go with that, right? And that's what they do at Goods Candies. That's a small Indiana-based chocolate company. Recipes going back nearly 100 years, guys. This is how long they've been doing it, 100 years. And so it's good if you've been doing it for that long. They're a small batch producer of decadent confections ranging from toffee to cream centers to their latest offering, peanut butter bombs. Unlike some other chocolates out there, they don't know what you don't know what you're getting every time you bite in. With Goods Candies, you do know what you're getting. Its cream centers have a unique design. You'll always know what's waiting inside. All varieties are offered in milk and dark chocolate. For the business listeners, Goods Candies offers customized chocolate bar gift boxes. They're not customized wrappers like you get at the bank. They're customized chocolate bars that include your logo or message. They make the ideal client gift, and Goods Candies can help handle all shipping for you. The website is www.goodscandies.com. Viewers can save 20% through the end of the year with promo code ISD. Place your order online or reach out to Goods Candies at goodscandies.com with questions. You got to do it over and over again. And that's how you get a quality product. That's how you get a quality
Amen. Product. Amen. I'm looking forward to trying that. I need to get some of that. I want to try that. I don't need it. I'm losing weight, so I'm finally trying to lose some weight. I don't need candy, but I do want to try it. So I've been doing my best here, boys. I'm losing some weight. I'm feeling good about myself here, Yama. You notice Yama hasn't said anything about it. Not one thing.
You?
I'm losing weight, man.
I didn't know you needed my.
We didn't want to jinx it. That's the thing. We didn't want to.
I'm down 30
Hey,
pounds.
you're looking good, Mike. I didn't know you needed my approval. So I wasn't aware.
Kidding. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I'm not going to get into the whole, Nards, Marcus thing at the end of the game. I mean, it is what it is. All I will say about it is there is a reason that Marcus Freeman had his guys in there. The second, really the third string by the time that happened. And it's because he didn't want to lose a player like Desmond Reed, right? You're out there playing. Now the guy is gone. And you talked about forever about how well, this game doesn't matter, blah, 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 doesn't matter. And then you went and you got your best player, literally your best player, hurt, and he's gone. There's no way he's coming back next week.
It's just got hurt in the last.
Yeah, I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing? So it just, I don't know. I don't blame Marcus for his reaction, and I understand that he's absolutely right in saying, look, it's our job to stop him, and I don't care what was going on. That shouldn't happen, and he's right. It shouldn't happen. But, 5 seconds left. It is what it is. What I do want to talk about is the rest of college football. And we've watched enough, and I know a lot of people are worried about rankings and things like this. And in my commentary after the game, I basically said what I believe, which is it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, where you're ranked. If you're going to be the national champion, you're going to have to beat the best team besides you. That they're going to show up at the last game more than likely. So if they are the best team or the second best team, they're going to be in that championship game. So you're going to have to beat them regardless, whether that's the first game of the season or first game of the playoff or it's somewhere else later. You're going to have to face that team. So I'm not worried about where Notre Dame is going to be ranked. And I know a lot of Irish fans are going to be really obsessed about that, and I get why. You want to have a home game, you want to do all those things, and I understand that. But I love that Marcus Freeman isn't focused on that, and his focus is, I don't have time to worry about stuff like that. I got to get our guys focused on how can they do the best, job that they can on Saturday, because what really matters is how we play. It really doesn't even matter what the other team is going to do. What matters is how we play the game, and are we ready to go? And I love the way he handles all of this, and I think he's done a great job. But let me ask you this question, Yama. You've seen all these teams. When you look at all these teams, where would you kind of slot them right now? I mean, who would you have 1 through, say, 6 right now?
I mean, I would have Ohio State, Indiana. I mean, not just because they're undefeated. I think those are the two best.
Let me stop you real quick. Where would you have them, regardless of their record in their current ranking right now? I'm just talking about where do you see who are the best 6 teams? Not about their record at this point. None of that. Who are the best 6 teams?
Ohio State, Indiana, A&M, Georgia. I would say Notre Dame and Texas Tech. Those, in my opinion, those are the best teams. And frankly, Texas Tech, I actually kind of think fraud. They're on fraud alert because I don't think the Big 12 is very good at all. Like, I understand they're dominating. Like, they're deserving to be highly ranked. Okay, whatever. I'm fine with that. And they have a lot of good players, but I do think that there are. I personally would put Notre Dame above them. Like, just if we were going to do rankings, but I'd put them in that same kind of group. And to me, I think like Ole Miss, Oregon, Oklahoma, Bama, et cetera, are just in that next one. But I do think that like Notre Dame would be in the 6 teams that I think could win it. But I actually probably would even only put 5 and put Texas Tech in the other one with those other teams. because that's how I kind of see it. But even then, Mike, I don't really see like Ohio State is good. And I do think when you have like similar to having Jeremiah Love and when you have guys like KVA and Leonard Moore and all, when you have the great players that can really like elevate a team, you know, and you're seeing more of Notre Dame's players elevate their games and do that too. And when you have that kind of like guys who can be game changers, like that does it does matter, right? And I think ultimately Ohio State has more of those guys or the best of those guys out of every team. And I think that's what probably separates them for me. But I don't think there's many. I think last year's like group was a better, you know, group in terms of like the playoff teams. I think there's a reason why a lot of these teams are going to be like 2-loss teams, and that it's like it's hard to determine which one is best, and you know, because I just don't think like Oklahoma. Okay, that's a big win. You win the game, you know, on the road at Alabama. Of course, you get credit for that. I don't think Oklahoma's that good of a team. Like I really don't.
Alabama.
No, I don't. I don't think they're that good. I think the SEC
if you can't run the ball, I just don't think you're going to have success in the playoff. If you can't run the ball, I just don't think you will.
And that's the thing with Bama too, is like I understand they have talent. Who are all the first round picks in their team? Like that used like the Saban, where they had the Pat Surtains and they had like they had 3 guys who were going to go in the first round from their secondary. And they always had 2 pass rushers that were going to go first round, and a defensive tackle, the top 10 pick, and they had a running back who was going to be a first round pick. And, you know, like Ryan Williams is a great receiver. Like he's super talented. I mean, I think there's a gap between him and Jeremiah Smith or whatever, but yes, he's a dangerous guy that like can change a game, like all that. And they have other talent on the team, but their offensive line, if they have a first round pick on that offensive line, it sure doesn't look like it. Like to me, I don't think so. And I think that's what's kind of missing from a lot of these teams is like, who are these who like A&M? I can say, I think A&M is obviously a very flawed team as we see, but they have the 2 receivers that are very dangerous at any point. Reed is a super erratic, but he's got talent and he's got
when he's on, he's good.
When he's on, he's good. And they have a solid O-line, and they have like Cassius Howell is about as good of a pass rusher as there is out there. And that's what kind of separates them. And that's why they're really, really good. But I think if you look at, say, like the reason why Texas is a 3-loss team this year, I mean, don't get me wrong, they got like Colin Simmons is a stud, and you know, Anthony Hill's a stud. They have studs on their team, but who's the dude on their offense this year? Like obviously Arch isn't it. They don't have that O-line anymore, and that's why they're a 3-loss team, or else they would have won some of these games, right? And I just don't really see it like Oregon. I don't think they don't have as many of those guys this year. It's just that's what it is, and that's why I think like ultimately when you get into these games, that's why you can see Notre Dame winning a lot of these games because like they don't have anybody like Jeremiah Love. Frankly, a lot of these teams don't have anybody like Jadarian Price. Right? Like, and obviously that's not even talking about guys like Raritan or Fields who can make spectacular plays and all that on offense too, right? So Notre Dame is not without its flaws, obviously, right? But there's just not a lot of guys that when you look at those games and you say like Notre Dame lost the national championship last year, say, well, they had Egbuka and they had, you know, Carnell Tate and Smith, and they still have Carnell Tate and Smith, and that's why whatever. And they have studs on defense, whatever, and they have a little bit more than everybody else, and that's why I would kind of put them at the top. But everybody else to me is kind of, I just don't see a lot of like really great players that can elevate a team to a different level.
I'll get Greg's thoughts in here as well, but here's where I think it's going to come down to. And it's the same thing as what we saw last year. it is, to me, can you handle people's pressure, right? Can your offense handle everybody's pressure? And I don't think there's a lot of great pass rushers that will be in the playoff. If Miami gets in there, they got a couple. You mentioned the guy from A&M House Roll. I think he's a very good pass rusher. But that's where I think Notre Dame struggled last year in the game, was just being able to handle all the things that Ohio State did up front. But also, I think Notre Dame also struggled stopping the run. And so I think line play, and let's be honest, Ohio State, their offensive line stepped up, especially in that Notre Dame game, way bigger than they had. They just were not that consistent or that good until really the playoff. And even then, I don't think they played quite as good as they did on that day against Notre Dame. It certainly helped that Notre Dame was missing, some very, very talented players. And I don't think they would have had the same result if some of those players for Notre Dame had played. But to me, I think when it gets to the playoffs, it's going to come down to mistakes, but also can your offense handle pressure? And I think the reason I like Notre Dame in the playoff against a lot of these teams is I think they have a quarterback who handles pressure extremely well. And I'm not sure some of those other quarterbacks handle the pressure very well. And that's one good thing about C.J. Carr. He does. But can Notre Dame's offensive line do a good job of protecting him? They've done a really good job of it recently, certainly. But I also don't think that they've gone against a lot of great pass rushers either in these last 7 games. There just hasn't been a lot of dominating pass rushers that they've had to face. So that, to me, is going to be the real question if and when they get to the playoff, and how well they can handle it. But I think that's going to be said for everywhere. I mean, you look at Georgia, and their defense isn't what it used to be. It's just not what it used to be. And their offensive line isn't what it used to be. And their playmakers, they got some good playmakers, but they don't have a lot of dominant, there's no Brock Bowers, there's no, they don't have the dominated, kind of offensive skill players that they used to have. They have some good ones, just like Notre Dame has some good ones, but I don't see a lot of great players. But we'll start with you, Greg. Your thoughts here on how you think this playoff's going to go once the teams are in it.
So I look at what team, and there are some, but like what teams, to Jamie's point about like Notre Dame in the top 6, who can be explosive on offense multiple ways, combined with a defense that is like, you just don't see teams scoring a bunch of points against them, right? Like you look at the best defenses like Texas Tech. Sure, they're good defense. Oklahoma, good defense. But like those offenses, like you don't really count on them to say like, I mean, certainly not Oklahoma, but like Texas Tech is like, do they have an offense that can like be explosive against teams? Because that's the thing. I mean, CJ Carr is like leading the nation in yards per attempt on an offense that also has Jeremiah Love on, right? Like that's a combination. I mean, Notre Dame scored 24 points against Miami in a game where Notre Dame was like simply not prepared for Bain and Messidor like they would be later on, like they would be now. And like Jeremiah Love didn't do anything in that game. They still scored 24 points without help. Like these are all long drives, like it's not like they got some short fields in there. That's not what happened. And since then, they've been just like everyone. I mean, they were great on offense against Texas A&M, and so it's that combination to me is like, now you look at Notre Dame's defense. I mean, they made Pitt look silly, like ridiculous, like non-functional.
Oh yeah.
And it's one thing to like, look, just say whatever you want about Pitt. Okay. 40 points a game, they're playing lemons or whatever it might be. It's one thing to go from 40 points a game to like 3, which is what they ended up with. And I don't count the last one because that's a farce, right? You go from 40 points a game to 3, like you're doing some serious business there, right? So I just like, that's the combination. How many teams, how many programs have that combination of we can hit you offensively with the pass and the run, and our defense is giving up less than 20 points a game? Like who can do that, right? And to me, that's the major question about, who are the great teams in college football this year.
Yama?
Yeah, I think that. And I also think I think every point I agree with you there, Greg, too. But one thing that I think really stands out to me is that we talked about, like, if you said what's the thing that is the most concerning thing going into where Notre Dame is, if Notre Dame's in the playoff, where's the thing that, like, man, this could really come back to bite them? And you'd say interior of the offensive line. They got 3 backups there, whatever, right? Like, okay, there's all that. But then you look at the teams that are, that they're going to play against. Who has? It's not like you kind of mentioned it a little bit, Mike, with like Georgia. They have Christian Miller. I think he's a guy. And last year against Notre Dame in that game, he was a guy who definitely stood out to me. Like, he's a dominant guy. He's a guy who's probably going to be a high pick. But Georgia used to have like 3 of those guys on the same team. So in that case, Notre Dame would have had 0 chance of blocking Georgia in that game. I mean, they barely blocked Georgia last year, but they also had like Jalen Walker and these. They don't really have those same type of guys. And as good as, like, I think Ohio State has Arvell Reese, who plays a lot on the edge, right? He's a linebacker, plays the edge, and is really good. And Cade McDonald, who he's been very good for them this year. He's really, really good. Outside of that, like, Peter Woods plays for Clemson. He doesn't play for a team that whatever. Who's the guy who's like an unblockable guy that's like, man, I don't know how Notre Dame's going to block this guy? Because it's just, I mean, it's basically those edges that Greg brought up with Miami, and I don't know if Miami's going to make it. And even if Miami makes it, they've just shown, because so many teams, like, easily the biggest mistake of the year was not understanding that you needed to, like, chip
pressure
at least Bain on every single friggin' snap. Like, that they could not leave him singled up, and they needed to do more to focus on those edges there, and which those other teams have done. And they're still really good and impactful, but they're not like dominating the games in the same way, because no one else is saying like, hey, we're going to block them that way, because everyone else is like, yeah, we can't do it. Like, they just, it's understood. So, but that's a lot harder to do when it's those dominant guys in the middle. And there aren't a lot of those guys this year that I think could really expose Notre Dame's offense in a way that could really make it difficult for them in so many ways. Like, I don't know if they'd be able to run the ball because of this. It's like, because we've seen teams have numbers against Notre Dame, and even Pitt, which has had like a really great run defense, right? Was like top 5 in like every category in run defense. And yet all it takes is like 1 or 2 plays, and Love or Price can just break it open. And they could still run the ball good enough against them. And they could still throw over the top and do these things too. So, and I do think it's a really big thing that Notre Dame didn't have a healthy secondary the whole year. This was the first game where they finished a game with the original starters in the secondary. And obviously Tay Johnson, got added in later and became a starter, because Tay Johnson has the difference between Tay Johnson and Jalen Stroman at safety is significant.
Huge. Yeah.
It's huge. And the difference between not having Christian Gray in there, or a not healthy Christian Gray in there. I think Devontae Smith, this was his best game of the season. I think Devontae Smith kind of showed in this game too, like basically how they trusted him and stuff too, that they feel that he will be the nickel now. It's not like Dallas Golden is splitting with him. It was like, no, he's going to be there. Then they still have 2 other guys that they've had played 200 plus snaps already this year too. Rubio's the only guy who's missing, and he should be back there. Like, and you have guys like Burnham and Anya and all these guys who are playing like the best football of their careers at this time too. And somebody asked early on, and it's way back. You don't have to find it, Greg, but somebody asked about Botello. Like, why do you think like Botello's not playing? Is it health? It's like, no, they just have too many guys there, and it's like, and a lot of guys are just playing well, so they don't need to. He doesn't need to play 40 snaps a game. 20 is probably good enough. There you go. Yeah.
All right.
I would just say that it's like they're going to play him over Boubacar. No, they're not going to play him over Boubacar. Over how Burnham's playing right now. Bryce Young's playing at a pretty good level, right? Like all of these, like it's tough. He's playing a lot, and I still think Patel, especially versus the run, is like a very underrated guy versus the run. But like, if Patel is a depth guy for you, you got a pretty good defensive line.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question, and you brought him up just now. You know, Boubacar Traore coming off an injury. I wouldn't say he's been as effective as he was at the beginning of the year. Do you think it makes sense to kind of limit his reps against Syracuse and against Stanford? Because, look, this is a long season. He's coming off an injury. He's a young guy anyway. Do you think it makes sense to kind of limit him a little bit in how much he plays, because you're going to need him certainly to be 100% and ready to go for the playoff if you do and are fortunate to make it there? Thoughts?
I think that does kind of make sense to do that. Just because I think I mean, he did play the most snaps out of any defensive lineman in the game, but he's played way more than anybody else on the team.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, you can play him like he played 39 snaps in this last game. 25 to 30 sounds about right to me. Like, I also think if they limit him a little bit more, and he has played very well versus a run too, so I don't want to like take away from that. But you get him, and he had 7 pressures in this game. It wasn't like he was bad in this game. Probably,
sure.
He probably missed a sack too. But if he could be a little bit fresher for some of these like third downs and stuff like that, I think that would make a big difference.
Yeah,
so,
I do too.
Because
I'm sorry, if you're young and you've gone through, I mean, you were out for a whole year. There's a lot of wear and tear, and he's had to.
It's
play
a high volume.
Yeah.
It's a high volume, Mike. You're totally right, and he's played more than anybody else. So, and I do think this is a perfect time to be like, okay, well, Patel, like, his reps have been cut down just a little bit. Like, he plays a little bit more than. Also, like, this should be games where, like, senior day for sure. Also, Logan Thomas, like, this is the time to just get him some run and at least just pass for a situation. I don't expect him to play every down, right? But like, this is the time to do it, right? Like, and hopefully you have a good enough lead that you don't have to worry about whatever. But still, even just if it's not in those kind of things, like, these are games for, like, Armel Mukum, who again made another play in the thing, like Armel Mukum, Cole Mullins. These guys just play a little bit less wear and tear for, like, I don't know where, Heinisch is at with his health, because he's been banged up the whole year and he's coming off a concussion or whatever. Like, get him right? Like, make sure Jared Dawson, who's like, there was a point where he had to come off the thing. He's been playing at a super high level. You want to keep that guy at a high level because you want to have as many of these guys. It is a really good point, Mike, that they've got an opportunity here that if they take care of business and they plan it out correctly, they could go into a playoff situation healthier than a lot of teams going into it.
Exactly. Let's talk Syracuse. And speaking of Syracuse, Greg, I've heard that there's an event happening at the Syracuse.
They got some good stuff going on, right? This is the last regular season home game, so you want to get down there, and maybe the weather might actually be good. It might be a good weather weekend. We'll check in on that. But if you do, right, and you want to get involved with the with the situation, you can do that with pickleball. That's H2 Pickleball, founded by what is going on here? My goodness. All right, here we go. H2 Pickleball, founded by Notre Dame alum Todd Hill. He's teaming with fellow alums Jack Gibbs and Will Howes, who's a top 10 pickleball pro, to bring Notre Dame fans to Notre Dame Pickleball Crew League. Besides football, what better way to connect and engage Notre Dame fans than through pickleball? Membership is free, and members will have access to special pickleball events and discounts. The next event will be a Will Howes Pickleball Clinic on the Friday before the Syracuse game. Members can also get discounted tickets to the Syracuse game. So you can get a two-for. You can get a pickleball clinic on Friday. You get a discounted tickets to go to the Syracuse game, senior day, and all that fun stuff. Contact Todd at h2pickleball.com or call him at 574-339-5195 to join the league. Be sure to visit the H2 Pickleball facility in Mishawaka when you are in town. H2 Pickleball is located at 55801 Evergreen Plaza Drive in Mishawaka, Indiana.
Syracuse, Yama. What do you think here? It's crazy because I knew Notre Dame would have a lot of success rushing the passer because I saw what they did to Pitt. Syracuse. I mean, they actually look pretty stout. Now I know they've had some injuries. They've had some guys get hurt, and so they're not the same team that they were a while ago. But what do you think here with this team and this game coming up?
Well, I think I do think they're going to be a team, provided the coaching staff stays there and all that. Like Fran Brown, I think he's gonna build it the right way, and I think he's like obviously known as a good recruiter. They're gonna be like pretty good later on, and last year they obviously won 10 games, and this year is like a huge step back for them. And it's not just the Angeli piece, right? Because even if Angeli was playing, they would be in trouble there. They're just really young, and they just don't have enough like top end talent right now. But I think they're going to be pretty good later on. Now they're just overwhelmed. They play hard. I still think that's one thing you can see. They play hard. I think they get after it on defense, even though they're not good. Like they're going to give up a lot in the secondary. They're going to be overmatched. I don't think they're going to be able to stop Notre Dame's passing game at all. And obviously, too, when you just look at it, like there's going to be opportunities for Notre Dame to get explosive runs, too. But I really think passing game wise, like they really struggle, to stop the pass. And I think that's going to be something you see in this game. And then offensively, their just offensive line is not very good at all. It's not very good at all. Like, and the quarterback, Ricky Collins, who replaced Angeli, he's literally one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the country this year, just statistically. Like, I think he's like 130th or 126th or something. He's down near the bottom in terms of his QBR. Like, he's thrown 6 touchdowns against 10 interceptions. He gets sacked a ton. And frankly, they don't have the same receivers that they did last year and the same kind of weapons. And it's just, do I think that they're going to try to do everything they can to win this? Like they're going to come out and really trying to throw everything they can in it. Obviously they beat Clemson at Clemson this year, which I know Clemson isn't good, but still they have no business beating Clemson in terms of their talent. Like Clemson should have smoked that. That should have been the biggest red flag out of anyone. That's like, hey, Clemson is not good at all. Like they have a lot of stuff broken because of that. And they've been embarrassed. Like Syracuse has lost a lot of games. They've been embarrassed in a lot of games, but it's not from not playing hard. Like they're playing hard and they're going to compete. It's just, they're going to be just so overmatched. So I really just think that like Notre Dame, if they're on point right away, they should be up pretty heavy in the first half, and the second half should be, a lot of backups in the second half.
All right, last topic. Going to get Greg on here for this, and then we'll close down the show. And that topic is Jeremiah Love's not far from breaking the single season rushing record for Notre Dame. There's the Heisman contention. Should Notre Dame do everything they can to try and get him the Heisman, or at least getting into the conversation to give him a chance at it? Or obviously they need to work on their passing game. They need to get some things together on that. I mean, if you're Mike Denbrock, you're Marcus Freeman, do you go into this saying, he's our guy? They really haven't featured him a ton this year. And you also don't want to get him injured. You want to make sure that he's around. And like Boubacar, do you want to put a lot of stuff on him this next couple weeks because you want to make sure he's healthy? And we saw what happened when he wasn't healthy. Notre Dame was a different team in the playoff than they were when he was healthy. And so it's kind of a tough situation, but what do you owe Jeremiah Love? What do you owe, and look, I mean, You win a Heisman, that's good for your team. It's good for your morale. It's good for recruiting. It's good for everything. So I think it's a tough situation that Notre Dame and Mike Denbrock and Marcus Freeman are going to have to battle with here these next two games. And, I think, sure, he'd love to win it, but he's such a team player that I don't think he's going to be, angry if he doesn't, or he doesn't get, 25 carries these next two games, each game. But I don't know. How do you handle that? We'll start with you, Greg.
I would go into it like any other game. I wouldn't go out of my way. Because just you would think just without, let's say he was a sophomore and he's definitely coming back next year. Like how many touches you would think he would get? Like 13 carries maybe against like Syracuse or Stanford. I mean, that's what the average was last year. Like you don't go out of your, because here's the other part, right? If he first of all, he's not going to win the Heisman. So that's the other part. It's like, it's going to go to like one of these quarterbacks. So that's the other thing. So the conversation is like, are you going to go out of your way to get him to New York is basically what we're talking about. If he is to go to New York, then he needs to do whatever he's going to do like early. He's not going to go to New York because he got 25 carries against Syracuse for whatever yards. Like if he has 13 touches, he's got to go for like 150 in those 13 touches. Like he's got to be dazzling kind of all the time. Volume of carries and touches is not going to get it done against Syracuse and or Stanford. So to me, I just go into it like a normal game. If it's 28-0 in the second quarter, whatever it might be, then you give the ball to Jadarian Price a bunch. You give the ball to Aeneas Williams a bunch. Like give the ball to those guys. You don't need to be messing around when you don't need to, when you got a guy like Jeremiah Love and you want to go to the playoffs. So to me, I would just treat it like any other normal situation.
Like you're thinking on that. Yama.
I think it's got to be like that because it doesn't matter if he rushes for 250 if he's in the fourth quarter and they're blowing him out and he's still doing it. Like it'll look bad. It's not gonna be a great look for him anyways. Like he's got to do it on minimal, and that's the thing too, is like that's what's got to happen. So I would say just early on, you got to make sure, if you're trying to make sure that you want to get your guy, and obviously they want to get him. It's good for Jeremiah. It's good for the program. There's all these reasons why you'd want that to happen, but you got to do that stuff early. So like opening script type stuff, you have to be like, well, we haven't really shown this. We haven't done it in a while. Guess what? We're going to run like we're going to line him up in the slot and he's going to run a go ball, like stuff like that. Right. Like obviously he can pull any kind of play can become a highlight with Jeremiah Love. That's the beauty of Jeremiah Love, but you give him probably like 3 or 4 specific plays to be like, hey, these are plays that we think could be like home runs here. And we're going to do this for him because we owe it to him. Right. But after that, if Notre Dame's up by 21 in the second quarter, they don't need to be like, I understand he can still play in the second quarter, but if it's halftime and they're up by 21, he doesn't need to touch the ball the rest of the game. Like he doesn't really. Maybe in the first series, maybe, but that's it. It's just the reality of it. You don't want to you'd be costing the rest of the team, and exactly what everyone says with like the team glory. Yeah, that is what, like, he would be upset by that if he got a chance. He's like, I'm missing the playoff because we tried to get he would be.
And he was hurt in the playoff last year.
Yeah, exactly. And so I agree with you 100%. I will say, though, I actually think he has a better chance to win the Heisman than a lot of people think. And I'll tell you why. People like Nick Saban love him, say he's the best player in the country. People like Kirk Herbstreit says he's the best player in the country. Desmond Howard hates Notre Dame. He says he's the best player in the country. When you get all these talking heads saying that, because look, I've watched Mendoza, I've watched Salem. They're good players. Don't get me wrong. They're very good players, and one of them will probably win it. But I just don't think that anybody's in love with either of those two guys at this point. I think they love Jeremiah Love. They just know that his stats aren't, the 2000 that Genty had. But guess what? Genty had it because they rode him, a mule. That's the reason he had all those numbers. And he's a good back. West. Yeah, exactly. And he's a good back. But it's one of these things where I just don't think that anybody loves this Heisman race. I think that Jeremiah Love has a fantastic story. You know, the ESPN certainly showcased that. And when there's nobody you really love, and you know, unless Ohio State and Indiana, like Mendoza just plays out of his mind, or Salem plays out of his mind, you know, I just don't think that they're going to be somebody that everybody's going to be like, oh, that guy's just amazing, we got to have it. So I do think that there's a better chance of him winning it than people are giving him credit for, because I do think that the people who are the talking heads think that he's the best player in the country. And so, again, I 100% agree with you. If you're up by 21 and a half, don't even give him the ball. You know, just say, hey, you know, we love you. We need you for the playoff. We know what it was like when we didn't have you for the playoff last year. So we got to make sure you're healthy. And I'm sure he would be the first person to say that too. So, but it's interesting because I know we've seen some discussion about it on the boards as far as, you know, does he have a shot and all this type of stuff. So anyway, that's going to be it, folks. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we will be talking to you next week, hopefully after a big Syracuse win. Hopefully Notre Dame gets their style points, does the things that they need to do, and everybody comes out healthy. We'll talk to you next week on Power Hour.